Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, March the 10th, and that means it's time for my news radar. As always, this channel is completely community supported, so if you like the content, please take a brief moment and consider becoming a YouTube member by clicking that join button down below, or perhaps becoming a patron on Patreon. If you can't do that, hit that like button, share, comment, whatever it is you can do to help the channel. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you. So let's start the show off today with some speculation about the upcoming phone from Google. So we know from some leaks, it appears that Google is working on not only a Pixel 5a, but a full-fledged Pixel 6. Now, over the past several years, Google, of course, has been releasing these A-series phones, which basically take their flagship, strip a few things away, drop that price by like half, and release it as a top tier low to mid-range phone. The Pixel 3a and 4a have both been extremely popular and have done really well. They've offered a phenomenal camera experience at a budget-friendly price, somewhere in the $350 range where they tend to be. So there are rumors that a Pixel 5a may be coming in the next several months. This is something I've actually talked about in prior videos, and if it is like the 4a or the 3a, and you take that Pixel 5 and you drop the price and kind of cut away the fat where you can, could be a really phenomenal device. But there's also rumors of a full-fledged Pixel 6 coming shortly thereafter. Now, here's what we know right now. We have a leak here from Jon Prosser, who tends to be relatively reliable, although he's more of an Apple guy than a Google guy, but so take this with a pinch of salt, as they say. But he's claiming the new Pixel Buds are coming in mid-April, which would be pretty interesting to see, because I feel like the Pixel Buds have gotten better with each iteration. They've gotten a little bit better and a little bit better, and I do really like wireless earbuds for some reason. There's almost always a set somewhere near me. Usually there's multiple sets around me for whatever reason. But there's also, in this tweet, June 11th, 2021 for a new Google phone. And as he's saying, I don't know if it's the 5a or if it is the 6. But digging a little bit deeper here, there are some reports, some evidence that the Google Pixel 6 may be actually moving its selfie camera from that far corner over to the middle, which is actually a move that I don't actually want to see. Unfortunately, we don't know a lot about this rumored Pixel 6, but it is that time to start following the breadcrumbs. And basically what this report is, they took an APK of a camera, the Google camera, dug into it and found some information. So a couple of things that they've pulled from this APK, this camera installation package, is that of course this device is using a code name. So even though this article does say Pixel 6 could have a centered selfie cam, the APK doesn't actually say Pixel 6. It has a code name. So this could theoretically be the Pixel 5a as well. We don't really know for sure, but it does seem to indicate that they are moving that selfie camera from the corner to the middle, and then it will be capable of 4K video recording, which is a new feature for Pixel devices. Of course, they've been capable of 4K shooting from the exterior, the outward world-facing camera, but not from the interior one. Now, of course, this is still very early on in the leaks for the Pixel 6. I'm really excited to see what the 5a and the 6 eventually do look like, because the Pixel 5 has been a very good device. The 4a 5G has also reviewed very well. So I'm really excited to see if Google sticks with the mid-range processor and the lower price with the Pixel 6, or if they try to re-enter the full-blown flagship market again with the Pixel 6. Perhaps moving that selfie camera from the corner to the middle very lightly signifies a move back to the full-blown flagship world, because that's where Samsung has theirs. And of course, Samsung makes some of the most high-end, over-the-top phones on the market. Maybe that's a bit of a reach. We'll have to wait and find out. So speaking of flagship phones that appear to be just over the horizon, we have a lot to talk about with the OnePlus 9 series. I've really liked OnePlus phones for quite some time, and the most recent one that I owned was the OnePlus 7 Pro. I feel like OnePlus maybe has lost their way a little bit over the last couple of years, but the OnePlus 9 is looking quite interesting, in particular in the camera department. So Pocket now has a breakdown of all the information that people have gathered about the OnePlus 9. So let's just run through this here real quick. Obviously, we've had some leaks of what the OnePlus 9 is going to look like, and the first thing from just the visual perspective I notice is that camera module, those two camera sensors are massive, and we have more to talk about that later. Whereas on the front-facing side, that little hole punch camera is actually very, very tiny. That's a really small cutout. So we're going to be getting not one, not two, but three OnePlus 9 models. So we're looking at a 9E or 9R low end, and then a 9 and then a 9 Pro. So we're going to get a flagship chipset out of the top two, the 9 and the 9 Pro, and then something more affordable out of the R variant or the E variant, something akin to the more budget friendly. And of course, that 9R/9E is apparently going to be powered by the 600 series Snapdragon SoC, which is actually a step down from the 7 series. So this is not, just going to drop from the 8 series down to the 7. This is actually going to go down to the 6 series. This thing will be a power sipping type device, maybe more akin to a OnePlus Nord or something like that. The OnePlus 9 and 9 Pro, likely to have the AAA, should be equipped with a 6.5-inch Full HD Plus display. The Pro jumping up to 6.78 inches with QHD, and both should include a 120 Hz refresh rate. As of late, OnePlus phones have had phenomenal screens, and these specs don't indicate that that's going to be changing. So the OnePlus 9 is supposed to have two 48 megapixel sensors. One of them is set up at 12 megapixels, where the other one could be a wide angle lens. The third camera is unknown. According to leaks about the 9 Pro, it could have up to 4 rear-facing cameras, up to 12 gigs of RAM, 512 storage, 4,500 milliamp hour battery. And let's actually switch to another article here from Android Authority, where they're actually talking about the fact that OnePlus has confirmed the OnePlus 9 series will have a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera. So this is more updated information. 50 megapixels for a wide angle is bonkers. It's not something that we see very often, and in fact, they've actually put out some snaps here to show that on their camera, you aren't going to get any of this distortion like you're seeing in a normal wide-angle lens. And this sensor is the IMX766. The Oppo Reno 5 Pro Plus has this exact sensor, and it's a really impressive sensor, and of course, slapping a wide-angle lens onto it is a really interesting idea. Let's jump back to the Pocket Now article, where they talk about the partnership with Hasselblad, and that does feed into the non-distorted wide-angle lens that I've just shown you. So they're talking about delivering vastly improved camera systems due to this Hasselblad cooperation with some color tuning and sensor calibration that they've done in collaboration with Hasselblad. Now, what does that mean? Really, we don't know. We've seen some Hasselblad branded stuff in the past. If you don't know, Hasselblad is a incredibly top-tier camera maker. They make some of the most expensive and most premium cameras on the market. They had cameras that were on the moon, for instance. But what does it mean for a phone maker to partner with Hasselblad? We really don't know. We aren't going to know until they speak more clearly about what exactly Hasselblad has done in collaboration with them. So far, all we know is that there's going to be a Hasselblad Pro mode, which will bring some calibration to the sensor and so forth, some different adjustments to ISO, focus, exposure time, so forth and so on. All in all, the OnePlus 9 is shaping up to be a pretty interesting phone, and if they can deliver on the promise on the camera side, it could be really interesting, because the cameras have always been sort of the shortcoming in OnePlus phones. It'll be really interesting to see where this goes. So we finally look to have some specs on what Qualcomm is going to do to compete with Apple's M1 processors. We have some leaks here. This is on MS Power User, and they're talking about the upcoming successor to the HCX system on a chip, which is what has been used in several different devices. A customized version of this has been called the SQ1 or SQ2 and has been used in the Surface Pro X, while the new one is internally referred to as the SC8280. And the biggest change that they're making here is they're going from using this big little approach on the processor cores, where you have some big power cores and some small, some little, if you will, power sipping cores. Well, it appears here that instead of having the big little approach, we're going to have 4 high-end cores that they're calling Gold Plus, and 4 more high-end cores just called Gold. So rather than going high-low, they're going really high and high. The Gold Plus cores will operate at 2.7 gigahertz, whereas the Gold cores will operate at 2.43 gigahertz, and that should deliver a pretty potent increase in processing power. Clearly, targeting that gap between themselves and Apple's M1. Now, obviously, when you go from that big little approach to this giant big approach, I guess is something you could call it, maybe, are we going to see a decrease in battery life? How will the efficiency suffer from using two more higher powered cores and ditching the efficiency cores? That remains to be seen. It will be really interesting to see if this is able to bridge that gap between Qualcomm and Apple in terms of ARM computing, and whether or not this winds up making it into a refresh of something like the Surface Pro X. I cannot wait to see some benchmarks, as I'm sure they will leak in the near future if this system on a chip is actually in late stages of development. Keep in mind that the SQ2 did run at 3.15 gigahertz. That's actually lower than this. I'm not really sure what to make of that. And the GPU appears to be the same GPU as what was in the SQ2. So the question I'm going to really have here is, they're going to lower this clock rate from 3.15. Well, is having these higher powered cores going to bridge that gap or not? 15 teraflops is a huge improvement over the 9 teraflops that we had in the SQ2. But again, are we going to be sacrificing efficiency for power? This all remains to be seen. So guys, that's all the news I have for you today. Be sure to check back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next news radar. Maybe take a look at the merch store for some cool merch like this, link down in the description. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.